It might be too simplistic to say that a little brightly colored paint can transform the character of a school, its students, and the community it serves. But when you walk through the doors of Nettelhorst, a public elementary school in Chicago's inner-city Lakeview neighborhood, the impact of this small change is evident. The walls are covered with murals, created by local artists, parents, and even students, creating an environment that crackles with enthusiasm and excitement.
There's a theory of reform that says you have to change the culture of the school, and then when you change the culture, the climate changes. We turned that idea on its head. We changed the climate of the school first, and with that, the culture changed. It is very hard to walk through the front doors of this building and be a miserable person. And when the environment changed, the feeling in this building changed too.
But Nettelhorst didn't always look like this, as Jacqueline Edelberg can attest. 8 years ago, as she looked forward to the birth of her second child, she had no idea she was on the edge of a rebirth of an entirely different kind, leading a community project to turn the blighted, financially strapped Nettelhorst into a school that parents and students alike could feel proud of.
I had a 2.5-year-old, and I was pregnant with my second at the time. And my husband said, well, you're not working now, go make yourself useful. So my girlfriend in the park and I decided we should check out Nettelhorst, which was our neighborhood school, and see just how terrible this place was before we panicked.
At the time, most of Nettelhorst's students were bussed in from overcrowded schools in distant, low-income areas of the city. Many had learning disabilities and behavior problems. The building's exterior was forbidding and run down, and there was a pervasive feeling of hopelessness.
The principal at the time, Susan Kurland, said, come on in, showed us around for 3 hours. She said, what do I have to do to get your kids to come to school here? And we said, well, that's very interesting. Well, come back tomorrow, we'll let you know. So we went home and we cracked open a bottle of wine and we stuck our kids in front of Dora the Explorer. And we cobbled together this wish list of all the things that we thought would have to be in place in order to make a neighborhood walk in en masse. Because at that point, nobody in the neighborhood went to school here. And Susan read our list and she said, well, let's get going, girls. It's going to be a very busy year. You need parents and you need a principal who wants it. We were 8 women in a diner. We weren't rocket scientists. We weren't building a reactor. We were, normal moms who needed a school that worked. But you have to have a principal who wants it too. Because we could have done somersaults from now until the end of time. If Susan didn't open the door and let us run with things, then nothing would have happened. I can tell you for sure there are versions of me sitting around every sandbox in this country, and there are versions of Susan sitting at almost every public school in this country. I mean, it really is true. Principals do want things to work. I think sometimes people don't know what's possible.
Jacqueline and the other Nettelhorst parents knew that any changes would have to be initiated at the grassroots level, and any work to be done would have to be undertaken by willing volunteers. The building needed a makeover, there was a shortage of textbooks, the teaching staff was overwhelmed, and funding was almost non-existent.
So we put all of these mommies onto teams, and we had infrastructure and PR and curriculum and marketing and enrichment and a special events team. And all of those teams had to succeed concurrently to make the project work. After 9 months, we had our first open house for the neighborhood, and 300 families came, and 78 kids signed up for preschool that day. It was hard work, and there were times when it was very difficult. I mean, for me personally, it's hard being out there. It is hard doing a project when you're not sure that it will succeed. I think for all of us who took this leap of faith, it was stressful.
Nettelhorst is located in a neighborhood that has undergone much revitalization in recent years. It has a sizable gay community and an ethnic mix of residents. It has also attracted a number of white middle-class families while still maintaining its creative, free-spirited atmosphere. Nettelhorst parents and administrators insisted that the ethnic and socioeconomic diversity of the school be maintained, even while recruiting new students from the neighborhood.
When we arrived, there were 300 kids here. It was entirely bussed in from overcrowded schools. Not to satisfy any racial mandate, it's just that the neighborhood refused to come. So At this point, there are maybe 650 kids, almost entirely from the neighborhood. The 7th and 8th graders are still from an overcrowded school. We did not displace anybody. All of those 300 kids from an overcrowded school stayed at Nettelhorst, and they stayed here all the way through. So the increase in test scores, which was immediate, was seen across the board, not just from the incoming kids. I'll give you a statistic. The incoming kids from the neighborhood, when they hit 3rd grade, they were tested for the first time. They had the highest test scores in the city. They were at 100% for math and 91% for reading. But for the last 2 years, the 7th and 8th graders, every single one of them from an overcrowded school, almost entirely free and reduced lunch, every single one of those kids scored high enough to go to any selective school, public school in the city.
Although the achievement gap hasn't been completely closed, current principal Cindy Wolbert says that high expectations and hard work are key to helping all students succeed at Nettelhorst.
I think that we do have a gap, an achievement gap, where our school is like a lot of schools in Chicago that have that achievement gap between certain populations. And I think it's up to the school to figure out what they're not doing in order to meet those children's needs. Is it an efficacy model? An efficacy thing where people are giving excuses about why children can't learn? Because I don't believe in that model. I believe in total efficacy. Every child can achieve high academic standards regardless of where they come from. And once you take the excuses out, then all that's left is let's figure out how to do that.
Today, Nettelhorst students are reaping the benefits of all that hard work in a lively, enriching environment that bears little resemblance to the school that Jacqueline and her group of moms walked into 8 years ago. But the transformation is by no means complete. A new crop of volunteer parents, including Rachel Gross, president of the parent organization, and Ted Ganschiff, chair of fundraising, has taken on the challenge.
We can't meet everyone's needs, but if someone says, I know this great music program and it could supplement our education and I have a connection at such and such, great, go ahead and do it. See what you can do and bring it back and then work with our principal or work with whomever. Nettelhorst can be whatever you want it to be, but you need to make it happen. You can't just pass off an idea. I have this great idea. I mean, we hear that all the time. I have this great idea. That's great. Go ahead and try it. Mm-hmm.
The work of parent volunteers is even more important since the state has slashed funding for education. Nettelhorst has made up the difference through aggressive fundraising, a solution that Ted sees as inadequate.
If this is what it takes, then this is what it takes. And we're in the fight for good. But to have to do these things, it makes me personally very angry. It makes me angry when I see the amounts of money that are spent on other things. I'm just one person in a sea of people, but some of the things I see money going out for are they're infinitesimally important compared to this sort of thing.
Nettelhorst is a true neighborhood school, which means it's more than a place for students to learn during the day. It's a meeting center, a linchpin of the community, and its halls and classrooms are buzzing with activity at all hours. On any given day, you can find parents and volunteers all over the building. Parent organization leaders say they are looking for new ways to spur parental involvement and help all families feel like part of the Nettelhorst community.
On the community side, we want to roll out this new program. We're still ironing out the details, but it's essentially we're calling it a 10 for 10 program, and we'd like over the course of 10 months each family to give 10 hours of volunteer time. So whether that's in the classroom, whether that's outside of the classroom helping with projects, whether it's doing fundraising, whether it's helping at school events, we would like parents to make that commitment.
Jacqueline insists that the success of Nettelhorst can be duplicated anywhere, as long as parents are willing to speak out and work hard.
But I think it's very important in looking at where Nettelhorst is now. Some people might come to the conclusion that, wow, look at all this fancy stuff. The Nettelhorst Revolution was powered by money. That money made this happen. Solid middle-class neighborhood, money made this happen. Money did not power the Nettelhorst Revolution. People powered this revolution. This was done by sweat equity and creativity and moxie, and a real fiery determination. The extra fancy stuff came later when people figured that part out. The superintendent of the Philadelphia schools said something really profound to me at a talk I gave. She said, in her 41 years of teaching, and being in education, she has never met a parent who did not want the very same thing for their kids that she wanted for her kids. They may make different choices, but everybody wants what's best for their kids. So yes, absolutely, it can happen anywhere else. It might take longer. It might not look like this when you're done, but it is the process of engagement that made Nettelhorst successful.
The parents and educators who have helped in Nettelhorst transformation say that all that hard work has been worth it, and that those colorful murals now reflect a culture of discovery, cooperation, and joyful learning.
I was walking through the parking lot, and a fellow came up to me who I don't know, and he has, I think it was a 4th or 5th grader, and he just moved to the country. And he walked up and he grabbed my hand, and he said, "My son made straight A's, I want to thank you." Oh, nice. Just because we'd done this stuff for the school. And I mean, so that sticks in your heart, and then your head does all the other stuff, right? And deals with all the problems in the daily. But the big stuff, the big stuff's going to stay. The big stuff's important.
I think it is a joyful place to be. I think you can't walk in and not sense that it is a joyful place to be. And what Susan would say is beyond, as you walk around, beyond seeing how things look, because it's delicious and it's lovely, listen to the sounds that you hear. And if children are happy and engaged, they're learning. And it's not a whole lot more complex than that. And when I walk around here as a non-educator, just as a mom, I know that I'm raising joyful, happy, thoughtful children. And that's my goal as a mom. I want thoughtful, lovely, joyful children. And I know this school is delivering it. And I know it's delivering it because a community rolled up their sleeves and made it happen.